Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at Gold Mythic William Carver, aka just Carver for the Telltale fans out there, who's going to be coming to RTS for the first time as an advanced token will character. Now visually Carver looks extremely accurate to how he did in season 2 of Telltale's The Walking Dead. The kind of jacket, the get up, very reminiscent of the Carver from the actual game. Now I'm not sure what his weapon is. We'll have to check that out later on in the video. It does look absolutely brutal though. It does look brutal. Barbed wire on it. It looks like it's I don't know, big piece of metal, but I'm not really sure. If you see on his back, he's also got like an axe. He's got a holstered pistol. Like I say, visually looks nice. On the left hand side, you can see he's kind of mid-fight in the storyline. Doesn't have that radio in his hand, because I think he did during this, but you know, it is what it is. It is, of course, Kenny. We'll see what happens there when it comes to RTS and what's going to happen around that. But yeah, it is actually a pretty significant scene in the video game, if you haven't seen it already. If we look at the stats, at level 1,440, limit break 3, he has got a massive 41,449 base attack, and then 17,637 defense and 29,103 HP. He is going to be a strong character, of course. Damage roll, so perfect for that massive attack stat. Gold Mythic character, and another character to join the Telltale Allegiance. Now first up, we're going to be taking a look at the Adrenaline Rush, and it is called Trick Smash. It's a 55 AP cost rush, so pretty fast on what looks potentially like an attack team character. Attack a line of enemies for 250% damage each, plus 1 attack to the line for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. So if this character is in a team with 4 teammates and himself, he should potentially get plus 5 attacks to each of those characters, I believe. I think this is going to be almost impossible to work out. I'm going to have to build an extremely tanky team. Probably have to take in Maggie, because I'm going to have like PK on the other team to really test this out. But I think himself counts. But it's about the other Telltale characters as well. Okay, so here we have the Adrenaline Rush of Carver. And just FYI, I have put a defensive weapon on him, as well as the fact that we're coming up against just a completely tanked out team. We're just going to see how many attacks he gets. He should attack PK and Nor, but I think he should attack them maybe 4 times each. We'll just count. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4. So the 4th attack from PK went on to Nor, and then so did the 4th attack for Nor go on to Nor. So she got an extra hit. That is basically how it's going to work. His own existence counts, so always buff the rush. He'll always get 2 hits to a line each, but for every other Telltale character he'll add another hit to that line as well. Now the reason I had to put a defensive weapon in his hands as well is obviously I wanted to see how many attacks it did a bit more obviously, rather than killing the enemies in 1 or 2 attacks and then him started randomly attacking everyone around on the enemy team. Just a bit more obvious to see how it actually works. I will say his base weapon is extremely good, so we'll have to wait until it comes later on in the video. But we can check out the upgrades here on the Adrenaline Rush, and you can see at grade 3 it gets the AP cost reduction to 55. So initially it's going to be a 66 AP cost rush, but that's at grade 3, not too much of a problem. Then you have grade 5 for 2 copies. It gets plus 100% damage. I guess that would be per hit. So go from 150% up to 250%. That may not sound like a big boost, but considering how many hits he can potentially do, that could potentially be, you know, hundreds and hundreds of percentage of damage overall. Then at LB2, it gets obviously the big upgrade where it's plus 1 attack to the line for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. This obviously is pretty important just because of the fact that he will get an extra attack even if you're only using Carver, so always do an extra attack to that line, but it would obviously do more attacks based on using more Telltale characters. I wouldn't necessarily say any of the older Telltale characters are a top tier on attack. Maybe some of the new ones are going to be. We'll have to wait and see. But you could definitely team him up with some of the older ones, or some very specific teams for very specific parts of the game. I will say, if you have a full setup of Telltale characters, it could potentially get, you know, some long animations like you kind of get with Ezekiel and I think with Tyrese in certain circumstances. So just take that into account when it comes to like faction assault or something like that. But the potential on this rush is pretty heavy hitting. If you put him in the right team, like I was using Maggie there, you're not going to have any problems with the complete randomness of where this could go after the initial attack. So that's just one thing again to take into account. Yeah, I think, like I say, it's pretty decent. Adrenaline rushes are generally where a lot of power is for attack team characters, but we have been seeing some pretty heavy signature moves come out lately, so let's go and check that out. And here is no real difference, as the signature move is also going to be pretty damage dealing. In harm's way, initial cooldown turn 1, cooldown at 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. Make a critical attack for 250% damage to an enemy, plus 1 attack for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. So it's going to be identical to the Adrenaline Rush, but instead of doing it to a line of enemies, it's going to be do it to an individual enemy. So obviously the damage isn't going to be as high overall, but it's still going to be pretty high, obviously, because it's going to be based on how many Telltale characters. If it's just Carver, it's going to be 2 separate hits. This means you can proc weapons twice. So if you wanted to use like a ransack weapon off of turn 1, and for whatever reason you wanted to ransack someone twice, you could. Or if you had a weapon that, you know, did things based on the enemy's HP, it could potentially proc twice. You know, amplifiers can come in twice. Control potential weapons can come in twice. So it's generally a decent thing to happen. So like multiple attacks is generally quite nice. And again, like I say, the more Telltale characters you have, the more attacks this does. You could potentially do, I believe, 6 attacks off of turn 1. And that base attack, big buffs. Who knows? If you have Maggie leads, obviously with Maggie lead you're going to do 1 less attack, but you could still do 5 attacks off of turn 1. If you're doing enough damage and you're not having any issues with weapons on the defense team, then yeah, you could rinse through quite a few characters, which is pretty interesting, especially considering his specialist skill can amplify this damage massively, just like his Adrenaline Rush as well. So this time around, instead of trying to build my AP with basic attacks, which is what I normally do, and then obviously command with Laura, I can just attack off of turn 1 with Carver, and he should do, I think he should do 4 attacks here. Let's count them. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're seeing an obvious issue that has occurred here, and that is the weapon situation. 60% proc weapons are everywhere, and Imani is quite an old character, and she had 1 on base, so you've got to, you know, obviously take that into consideration. But you can take into consideration the fact that you can just rush with him as well on the same turn if you have Laura. So you can potentially do 4 attacks in this situation with his signature move, and then I'm doing like 8 attacks on the next turn, you know? And then you can see it's potential output on turn 1 of this character with Maggie leads is going to be actually pretty decent, I think. Not too bad at all. So good potential in this signature move. Obvious, same downsides that most multi-hitters have. You have to get the team ups obviously working well. I was using Maggie here just an example. That team up obviously seems pretty decent. Now if we look at the signature move upgrades, we can see at grade 2 a pure upgrade is going to come in, and it's going to be +1 attack for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. So initially that's not going to be on the character, but it's only be grade 2 for this, so it's not too much of a problem. Grade 4 -1 to cooldown is going to come in, so it's going to be initially a 3-turn cooldown and go down to a 2-turn cooldown. At limit break 1, 100% damage boost, again pretty similar to the Adrenaline Rush. Make a critical attack for 250% damage to an enemy is going to be the outcome. Initially it's going to be 150%, and at limit break 3 it gets -1 to starting cooldown. I think we're pretty used to LB2 or LB3 upgrades being -1 to starting cooldown, and it'll go from a turn 2 starting cooldown down to a turn 1 starting cooldown. That one is obviously important. You want to get that early damage off as quickly as possible. And on Carver, you know, him being an advanced token wheel character, he is fitting a slot that is kind of been missing. We had a decent attack character come out in Tyrese, but he was an ultra, and he's more comparable to someone like Sophia, whereas Carver seems to be a bit more comparable to someone like Agent 46, Harrison, Raven, these sort of characters. So yeah, that's actually pretty good to see. We don't actually have an alert character in that sort of role, so maybe we get one of those coming up. But yeah, Carver seems to be pretty good. That first, you know, initial hit that he's going to do with his signature move seems decent. Yeah, very nice. I like the signature move a lot. I like the combo from the signature move and the rush. And like I said already, this can get massively amplified by the specialist skill, which we will take a look at later. Now, of course, Carver is going to be an advanced token wheel character, so we are going to be giving away some advanced tokens, 10,000 advanced tokens to one lucky winner. And all you have to do is type down in the comments the word Bill, because that was another name that William Carver was obviously known by. I'm pretty sure you can come up with some interesting ones for that one when it comes to the entry phrase. Make sure you use it as part of a sentence so you don't get spammed out by YouTube. Best of luck to people who enter. Now back to the video. Now, checking out William Carver's mythic abilities, these are his passive skills. He has of course got agility. That is going to be because of his role, and that is going to be fantastic for adrenaline rush. His signature with basic attacks, it's all going to be good. Perfect for him. Next up is Shepherd the Flock. All teammates get 10% attack for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. This is actually pretty big. You can actually then use a Telltale team and get a pretty decent buff. This is why he was still doing some pretty decent damage in those clips before, and he was using a defensive weapon. He had a plus defense stat weapon, no attack stat, and he was doing reasonably decent damage against some high HP characters there. Obviously, with his actual base weapon, it'll be much nicer. If you're just using Carver, he'll always get a plus 10% attack, and it will just be him who gets it. But if you like use him and Lily, obviously they'll both get 20% attack each. So that's actually kind of cool that it doesn't just amplify, it also buffs those characters as well. The next passive is called Side Effect. When attacking a target that doesn't have a debilitating status effect, 50% chance that target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns. Now, it's unclear when that procs. It could proc before he attacks, before his damage comes in, and that would obviously activate his specialist skill. I will try and find that out. I'll obviously try and message someone from Scope here and put that in my top comment, because I know people will probably be interested in that. But if it does proc before the actual hits come in, that's obviously spectacular. It's almost guaranteeing the fact that the potential is there that he will obviously be doing, put damage against a character with that specialist skill. It's only a 50% chance that it will occur, but if it does occur, obviously the damage output is going to be massively boosted. That's probably, again, another reason why that damage was getting boosted. The next one is Awestruck. When attacking, 50% chance to stun the target for 1 turn. That has a potential as well to proc, and that will also activate the specialist skill, and that's each individual attack. So when he does his rush, where he could potentially do multiple attacks to a line of enemies, like 2 at least, maybe up to 5, 6, he's obviously going to be able to do it with every single attack. If he takes out an enemy and his attacks will go random elsewhere, can also stun those. So yeah, it's only going to be a 1-turn stun, but it effectively is getting the 50% chance to stun an enemy when attacking from the weapon that we had, let's say, who is it? Awakened Negan had, but in his passives. Kind of actually cool that. I like these passives quite a lot, and I think actually they work perfectly well with William here. Okay, so we're going to try and pay a little bit more attention to the teams here. Let's pay attention to this line down here. What I'll do is I'll do a basic attack first, just to proc the... we'll actually take out Mike. That's absolutely fine. We want to see if there are any debilitating status effects that land on these 2 characters. It can be stun, and that'll be 1 turn, or it can be a random debilitating status effect, and that'll be 2 turns. We'll have to really pay attention. We did see a 2-turn stun on Peacekeeper, and I think we see a stun on Imani on the top as well. And that the 1-turn stun there is from the initial, from his actual passive, which has a 50% chance to do. But the 2-turn that landed on Peacekeeper is not. That's from the one where it's 50% chance to land a debilitating status effect if they don't already have one. And just to note, with the way it works actually with Telltale characters getting added to the team with Carver in the team, it isn't just Carver and the Telltale characters getting that boost, it's any teammate. Watch Maggie's attack stat when I add Lily. Lily's base weapon is a rampage weapon. It hasn't got a 1535 on it. If we add Lily in, you can see that Maggie's attack stat went up because of the boost from Carver's passive. Got an extra 10% on the multiplier, where it went to a 30% boost. This is obviously massive, not just for the Telltale characters, but also for Anniversary Maggie here. Now jumping straight into the upgrades, you can see at grade 1, the first half of Shepherd the Flock comes in, where all teammates get 5% attack for each Telltale Allegiance teammate. At grade 2, Agility 1 comes in, where it's going to be 10% increase in basic attack damage, which is also going to work with his Adrenaline Rush and his signature move. And then at grade 3, the second half of Shepherd the Flock comes in, making it a 10% total attack bonus for each Telltale Allegiance teammate, but that again, like I said, goes to all teammates. Moving on to grades 4 and 5, side effect 1 comes in when attacking a target that doesn't have a debilitating status effect. There's a 20% chance that target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns. And then at grade 5, Awestruck comes in, part 1, when attacking, 20% chance to stun the target for 1 turn. Moving on to limit breaks, we get Agility 2 come in, which is absolutely great. And like I said, because it works with that rush and the signature move, because they're going to hit so many times, definitely worth upgrading. Very good on this character. And Limit Break 2, Side Effect 2 comes in, making it a 50% chance total that the target gets a random debilitating status effect for 2 turns if they do not already have one. And at Limit Break 3, Awestruck 2 comes in, making it a 50% chance total that you will stun the target for 1 turn when attacking. I think these passives are all great. The fact that he adds some control as well is nice, but the control, as much as it is control, it's more actually damage, for Carver at least, in terms of him being able to amplify his own damage with his specialist skill, which we'll check out in a sec, but he will get boosts from his specialist skill on characters that he has controlled with those, you know, with side effect, with Awestruck, which is obviously fantastic. The damage boost that he's going to get just based off of the first passive because of Telltale characters is nice, and then obviously agility works really good on this character. So yeah, not amazingly spectacular, game-changing passives, but they are going to completely amplify all the things he's already bringing to the table, which is actually pretty significant damage by the looks of things. Now, I've been kind of mentioning the specialist skill a couple of times, and it's Cutthroat 2. This is actually a pretty good specialist skill. I think a lot of people do rate this, but there are some people who actually kind of underrate this. Whenever this fighter deals damage to a fighter that is under the effect of a debilitating status, they will deal 100% extra damage. That's going to happen per hit. He hits so many times. He has so many chances to proc debilitating status effects on characters that don't have them. There are so many characters out there that can potentially put down, you know, stun on 3 characters on turn 1. You've got the likes of Carl's, Diamonds does too. You know, there's a bunch of characters that can do some pretty decent control. So that's actually pretty decent, honestly. I think this is obviously going to work fantastically well on Carver, especially given how his passives work and the fact that he just, like I say, multi-hits so many times. This is almost a perfect specialist skill for Carver. And those 250% are going to get massively boosted because of that. Now, we're kind of hiding it a little bit, but we will hide it no more. William Carver's Savage Pool Q. It's a pool Q, okay. 40% attack, a huge bonus to AP when attacking. Improved bonus attack, 45% attack when attacking enemies with more than 35% HP. And in the last one, it has an improved 1535, where he gives 25% attack and 35 crit to this fighter and all adjacent teammates. This is going to massively boost the attack output of himself and obviously surrounding teammates. This includes the leader, for instance, in that Maggie team before. I'll show you the stats in just a second, just kind of to compare the differences between the 2 weapons that he would have in his hands. But this is obviously going to be great for him. The fact that he'll be able to proc that 3rd slot when the character is above 35% HP rather than the 50% that you can build in the armory just means you've got more chance of this proccing on his multiple hits. That's going to be absolutely great. Off of turn 1, it's not going to be too much of a problem. He's always going to be able to get that, you know, hit off and proc that 3rd slot, but when he gets that adrenaline rush in, it might not be as guaranteed, so it's just always nice to have a bigger window to be able to proc that, and it is going to be a nice big boost as well. Okay, back to the team stats here. You can see this is the stats that we had before. If we go in, you can see this is the weapon that I had equipped, which just had a defense bonus. I did actually have a 1535 down below, but if we remove it, let's just check out the stats before. He's got 86k, and let's say Maggie has 153. If we remove the weapon and he goes to the base weapon, he gets boosted up to 132, so like a 50k boost almost. And then Maggie gets boosted up by a bit to 167k. Lily also gets boosted, but it's mainly, you know, William Carver himself, and obviously the leader who's going to get all of the bonuses from the 1535s. So that's it for the little first look at Gold Mythic William Carver, who is, of course, like I said, going to be an advanced token world character coming to RTS. And I think he's like the 4th character to come out in the new Telltale batch of characters. So it's interesting. We'll see if we can see more characters coming on the way. We have got to kind of hint at a couple more. So like I say, we'll have to see what happens going forward. But I really like this, honestly. I really like this. Visually, Carver is exactly like he is in the comics, so it looks great. His kit is good. It works with the specialist skill. It's going to get amplified by the passives. He should be a pretty good damage dealer. He should be pretty fast too, because he's going to get off the damage quite early on in the fight. And I think he is like one of the missing kind of like traits when it comes to that advanced character that can do pretty significant damage off of turn 1. Like I said before, we had Raven, we had Agent 46. Now we've got Carver. Could potentially be an alert character on the way in the distant future. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I think, like I say, Carvers should be pretty decent. The team up with potentially Maggie, maybe even Tyrese, we'll have to see. But him alone is actually pretty good. I'm not sure about how his viability is with a pure Telltale team. It could potentially be some crazy Telltale team. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, not looking too bad at all. Do tell me your thoughts on Gold Mythic Carver in the comments down below. Best of luck if you enter the giveaway. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.